The last time that we looked at our worlds at war, things weren't going so hot for Superman. Or Earth, for that matter. In our first string of issues, President Lex Luthor was warned about a dangerous threat that was coming to Earth, the being called Imperiex, and so he put into motion a series of plans to counter its arrival. All of this was happening outside of Superman's knowledge, though. When he encountered Luthor's manipulations, that's all that he thought that they were, Luthor being up to something. And regardless of whatever Luthor could have told him, Superman would never trust Lex Luthor anyways. Then, an Imperiex probe rocketed to Earth. Distracted by the reveal that the General was actually General Zod, Superman was unable to stop the probe. It landed in Topeka, Kansas, not far from Superman's adopted hometown of Smallville. The city was devastated. Despite being caught with his red undies down, Superman did respond, and he did destroy the probe that landed there. But doing so took a lot out of him. After the conflict, he visited his parents' farmhouse and found it utterly destroyed. There were no bodies, but things were beginning to look grim. And then they got worse. The Justice League, under the direction of the President, joined the Alien Alliance Armada in space in order to defend Earth from the rest of the incoming probes. They got their shit rocked, too. Most of the League was hospitalized, including seasoned veterans like the Flash, the Martian Manhunter, and Wonder Woman. Upon hearing that Atlantis was being threatened by a probe, Aquaman returned to his home to defend it. The King fought hard, holding out until, hopefully, Superman could reinforce him. But for all of his speed, the Man of Steel is still only so fast. Superman got to Atlantis just in time to watch it disappear in a burst of light, taking the probe and Aquaman with it. The losses didn't stop there. Superman's friend and ally, John Henry Irons, the armored Superman called Steel, was tasked with leading the Suicide Squad to the Justice League's moon base, so that they could free Doomsday. The creature that killed Superman nearly killed them all as well, until the telepathic Manchester Black managed to change the monster's fixation from Superman to Imperiex. Superman then joined forces with it at Irons' behest, wanting his death to not be in vain. Together, Superman and Doomsday cut a swath of destruction through the Imperiex probes. Sacrificing a part of himself to the violence, the pair reached the main body of Imperiex, an armored shell that dwarfed even nearby planets. And it blasted Doomsday into atoms with a gesture. With another, it almost killed Superman. Only the teleporting effect of a boom tube rescue by Darkseid, the ruler of the fire-pitted planet Apocalypse, saved Clark. In classic Darkseid fashion, this was not just an act of benevolence. He had built an armor out of Imperiex probe fragments and apocalyptican technology, and he believed that with it, Superman had the power to kill Imperiex. But Clark turned it down. Any gift from Darkseid is a trap, even if it is a boon now. They fought, and during the battle, Superman was briefly contacted by Steel. In an attempt to learn how the war was going as he died, Irons had accidentally discovered a cloaked party in this conflict, and he attempted to warn Superman about it. But by the time that Superman reached the moon again, Steel was dead, killed by a shadowy figure. DC's god of death, the Black Racer, came to claim Irons, but he was denied by Superman. Now they fought, and the Racer proved its inevitability. But seeing Superman struggle to save this one life, a life so similar to the human life that hosted the Black Racer, touched him. Rather than deliver Irons to the afterlife, the Racer changed course to Apocalypse. Superman, on the other hand, returned to Earth and its defense. He traveled the world in a shell-shocked stupor, lost in the combat. Thoughts of his parents, of Aquaman, of Steel, of the Justice League, of the millions that were dying every hour haunted him. He was an effective killing machine against the threats that he could face, but he was still only one man. Disconnected from the world emotionally, Superman was unable to stop his own individual fights and help anyone else, including Hippolyta, Wonder Woman's mother, who was killed when she confronted Imperiex. Then, Superman arrived at the White House too late to save Major Sam Lane, the father of reporter Lois Lane, wife of Clark Kent, aka Superman, from detonating the nuclear core that powered his tank. His sacrifice destroyed the probe that was heading towards the White House, saving both the president and his daughter. Lost, Superman arrived too late and attempted to comfort his wife. But she wasn't ready for that, leaving him alone with President Luthor. He thought that he knew how to fight, that he knew how to win. But after these losses, after today, Superman admitted that he didn't know how to win this. Whatever the president needs from Superman to win this war, he'll do. If that all sounds pretty grim, well, yeah, that's the point. Author Jeff Loeb was the one overseeing much of the broad strokes of this event, and his main story focus was to produce a crossover that felt like a war. Not a comic book event, but a war. And so far, every issue of this crossover has felt pretty grounded. Despite the vast array of powers that Earth can call on, it has still felt like the underdog this entire time. Given that this event is built around Superman, who many people, myself included, think of as an upstanding yet stiff, boring, overpowered, relatively unstoppable force, that is some pretty impressive storytelling. More impressive to me is how this event has been structured, though. The first 4 issues that we saw revolved around President Luthor making preparations for Imperiex and Superman running into those preparations. This constantly played into Superman's paranoia regarding Luthor, and the audience's distrust of him as well. The second string of issues broke that distrust apart. All of Luthor's manipulations were laid bare, and they all seemed to be to Earth's benefit. More importantly, this arc broke Superman down. He has seen his greatest allies beaten and almost die. He has seen Doomsday die in a split second, and he lost himself in grief, anger, and the foggy haze of battle. This kept him from helping Wonder Woman or Hippolyta, or from saving Major Lane, his father-in-law. Superman had been fighting pretty much non-stop since the probe first hit Topeka. He had even accepted that killing the probes was necessary, and none of it helped. For all of his power and great might, Superman just couldn't fight this war alone. So he's turned to the one man who might very well be his greatest enemy, and he's willing to take orders from him. That is some dope storytelling. So let's see exactly what Lex has in mind. My name is Ben, and this is Comic Book Breakdown, episode 13.6, Our Worlds at War, Part 6. We have come around to where this has all started, to Superman's self-titled series, issue 173 specifically. Jeff Loeb continued to write it, Ed McGuiness penciled it, Cam Smith inked it, Tanya and Richard Hourier did the colors, and we have a special credit for legendary artist Bill Sienkiewicz. As with Loeb's previous 2 issues, he has a presidential speech running through the background. This time, though, it is John F. Kennedy's inaugural address, and I've got to say, this one actually pairs really well for me. I'm not going to really get into it, I just wanted to let you know that I think this is a really good use of this speech in this comic. We open with Wonder Woman, Green Lantern Kyle Rayner, and Superman standing before the camera. They're all beaten and worn, but they're also grimly determined. Superman points at us, at the camera, demanding that the president tell him how to win this war. Turn the page, and we've got a double-page spread of the White House's war room. Surrounding a holographic projector are President Lex Luthor, General Rock, the scientists Dr. Magnus and the Atom, and a hologram of Darkseid. They give us an overview of what's been going on so far. Basically, that Imperiex is a being of pure energy contained in a massive armored shell. It consumes the energies of galaxies and has now set its sights on Earth. Turns out, Earth is the linchpin of the multiverse, so if Earth is destroyed, then all universes shall be destroyed. This is done in a process called the hollowing. Earth has managed to slow Imperix's advance. The Justice Society of America managed to destroy its mothership in their own one-shot issue, and so Imperiex cannot produce any new probes. That only slows its process, though. Imperiex is still headed to Earth. In order to stop it, Luthor says, they need to crack that armor and let that energy dissipate. So, once the armor is cracked, the energy will be sent via boom tube back across space to the galaxies that it once came from. Superman looks away from them all. So, they want him to kill Imperiex. Luthor sighs. This isn't like killing a person. This is like using heat vision to stop a tidal wave, or super breath to douse a forest fire. This is fighting a force of nature, not killing a person. Superman says that he isn't going to debate morality right now. He told Luthor that he would do what he had to, and he will. But his point really was, how do they kill something like Imperiex? Destroying a probe's armor isn't easy. In fact, doing so has hospitalized many of the world's greatest heroes. Who has the power needed to crack the main Imperix's armor and survive? 'Cause it sure ain't him. A woman's voice says that she does. Entering the room is a woman in blue, white, and black, her costume a pointed take on Superman's design. Blue energy radiates off of the Strange Visitor, and yes, that's her name, the Strange Visitor, and her billowing blue hair. She grimaces when Superman greets her. Yeah, once this is over, she's going to need to rethink her superhero name. But yeah, she is the payload on this mission. She just needs Superman to take her in. There's a quiet panel in which Superman just stares at her. Above him, watching over the room in a window, is Lois Lane. Then Superman nods. He'll do it. A short time later, Lois and Superman are in the war room, separated from the rest of the group. It's clearly weird between them. Both of them have their hands by their sides, like, despite being a couple who are clearly suffering emotionally, they don't reach out for each other. Lois either has her eyes closed or is looking away during their conversation, emotionally closed off from Superman. Clark, on the other hand, doesn't look away from her at all, and he says that he's sorry about her father. Lois stumbles out a response, thanking him, but you can tell that she's maybe holding something back. She adds that her father's death feels like it's a part of a story, referring to the fact that she is a reporter. This doesn't feel like something personal. This feels like a news story that she's covering. She mutters, "Someone else's story," at the end, and then she says that she misses Clark. That is when Lois looks at him. He needs to go. Superman's eyebrows rise in sympathy and sadness. Yeah, he does. In a streak of yellow, blue, and red, he flies away. Loeb's opening here works fairly well overall, especially since I took a few weeks between reading issues. He tells us what's going on, laying out the stakes of this conflict, and then gives us a plan for how they're going to deal with it. That's nice. The sudden arrival of Wonder Woman and Green Lantern, who were not present at the end of our last issue, feels a bit weird, but I can buy it. It doesn't necessarily feel like this issue picks up exactly where the last one ended, so sure, there could have been time for them to get to the White House and re-up with Supes. I'm more thrown by Superman's general attitude here. His acceptance of Luthor's leadership made me think that he would just do whatever Luthor told him to, like a mindless soldier with no concern for his emotions or morality, two things that he has shown to sacrifice throughout this conflict. But here he is demanding answers, questioning the plan, and I don't know, I'm just thrown by it. This wasn't what I was expecting. It does make sense, like, just because Superman is willing to work with Luthor doesn't mean that his brain went out the window. He is still a logical, thinking being with his own personality and feelings and years of experience doing this kind of crap, and sure, he is quieting some of those concerns to work with Luthor, but those concerns are still there. This was one of those times where what I wanted out of a story messed with my perception of that story. So honestly, that's on me. I am pretty unfamiliar with the strange visitor, but I am vaguely familiar with her costume. Back in the mid to late 90s, there was a plotline where Superman got new energy powers, and he needed an electromagnetic costume to contain them, and that costume was a pointed blue and white version of his standard design. While I've never read those comics, I have seen that design before, and I remember liking it. So whatever the visitor has going on, she is probably in a similar situation, where her power needs to be contained, and this costume is helping to regulate it. This implies that she is at least close to Superman in terms of raw power, if not more, although I don't really know much about what her powers are otherwise. If she says that she can crack Imperix's armor, well, I'm gonna take her at her word. For me, though, the really notable thing in this scene is that one moment between Superman and Lois. I love the acting here. There are gems in both the dialogue and the artwork. Like, despite the fact that the two of them are married, no one else in this room knows that. So they can't hug or comfort each other, despite needing it. So we've got the distance between them, they're close but they're not touching, and their arms are at their side as if they're forcing them to stay down for appearance's sake. I get the feeling that a hug is desperately needed by both of them, but they just can't. And then we've got the facial actions. Clark is clearly reaching out to Lois emotionally, if not physically. He never looks away from her. He is desperate to connect with her. But Lois can't, not yet. Her eyes are either looking down or they're looking away, until she finally does look at him to tell him to go. Only then does she risk looking at his face and into his eyes. Lois is clearly withdrawing emotionally, afraid of feeling this too deeply right now. Penciler Ed McGuiness is best known for his cartoonier style with its larger-than-life figures and impactful fight scenes, and those are all good things about his art style. But here, the little details are what sell those emotions. The acting here is just solid, and it's just a page! Oh, I love it! I particularly love Lois's comment about her father's death feeling like it's part of a story. Lois is a journalist, and it is important to remember that only a few issues ago, and in story terms only maybe a few days, Lois was threatening to expose whatever the president and her father were up to. The truth and justice are much more important to Lois than emotional family connections, so it makes sense that the leading emotions that she has right now are her journalistic ones, and not her personal ones. This is what is keeping her from collapsing right now. It's something bigger to focus on more than just the loss. But her additional comment, quote, "someone else's story," end quote, interests me. 'Cause it is. Sam Lane's death isn't the story here, literally and in a meta sense. Within the world of the comics, Lane's death is honestly part of Luthor's story. In a meta sense, his death is part of Superman's story and the broader picture of DC Comics. It's been outright stated that Luthor was hoping to use this war to cement his place in history and save the world and maybe win over the hearts of people everywhere. But it's also been hinted that he might be failing to save lives in order to achieve that goal, that he might be manipulating this war to his own benefit. It's quite likely that President Luthor summoned Lois Lane to the White House in order for her to act as motivation for Major Lane, so that defending the White House wasn't just his duty, but a personal mission too. Luthor may have set up that sacrifice and just waited for Lane to push the button. I don't know if Lois is going to look further into her father's death or Luthor's actions after this war is over, but it certainly feels like she is getting a bead on that kind of story element here. No swearing! Her quiet, "I miss Clark," as she stands in front of him, but as Superman, the Man of Steel, not Clark Kent, her husband, is heartbreaking. No swearing! Hey, that is good. Back in the comic, Superman rockets through space in a sleek, sharp red and black spacecraft. A green line and a blue-white craft indicate that the Green Lantern and Wonder Woman are acting as escorts. Inside of the ship, Superman tells General Rock that he could have flown to Imperiex under his own power. There was no reason to risk anyone else's lives. General Rock shoots that kind of talk down. They want Superman at his full strength for this job. He elaborates, explaining that Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, and the Alien Alliance are going to draw Imperix's attention so that Superman can deliver the payload. Superman says that a man as important as General Rock doesn't need to be here at all. He could have stayed at the White House, coordinated the war. He clearly chose to be here. So why? Biting down on his cigar. I love that this guy is smoking in a spaceship. Rock smiles. This bird's got 30 hydrogen bombs on it, and someone's got to guide it in. That's gonna be him. Rock volunteered for it, in fact. Superman turns to look out a window, watching Wonder Woman fly alongside the craft. Thanks to his enhanced senses, Clark can see Diana through her invisible jet and hear her across the vast emptiness of space. She knows how he's feeling, but he can't let himself get distracted. This job needs to be done, and they need to be strong. Not just for each other, but for everyone. A man's voice draws Superman's attention away from her. A trio of soldiers wearing the black silhouette of the Black Hawk group approach Superman. One of them, a black man, bashfully holds up his helmet and asks if Superman could autograph it. Of course, Superman replies, using his heat vision to burn an S shield into the forehead area. He asks where the soldier is from, and the man nervously downplays it. Superman's probably never heard of it, but it's Willard, Oklahoma. Superman lights up. That's across the border from Kansas, yeah? It's really pretty in the fall when the leaves turn. The soldier's eyes are lit up. Yeah, that's it, exactly. A sad smile settles on Superman's face. He likes that part of the country. Nearby, the strange visitor watches this encounter with General Rock behind her. The strange visitor can't believe how easily he does it. The biggest hero in the world, and he makes the men feel like he's just one of the gang. General Rock counters that's because he is. In war, all lives are equal. Every life counts. The stranger finds that hard to believe, especially coming from the man who, quote, single-handedly won World War II, end quote. He scoffs at that idea. He did his duty, his job, and he was more than happy to retire and let the world think that he was dead. But then his country called, and he answered. But not because he's anything special, not because he's some kind of hero, because this is what you're supposed to do. Even if it was Lex Luthor doing the calling. This surprises the visitor. She thought that he would have taken, pride, happiness, honor, glory in his history, in just being remembered. Rock takes his cigar out of his mouth. Is that it? Is the visitor looking for her red badge of courage? Look, Rock says, he doesn't give 2 cents about any title or badge that they stick him with. If he could give any of those honors back to get any of the men who died under him back, he would. In an instant. A red badge of courage is a stain that every soldier gets that won't ever come off. He walks past the visitor. He would trade every one of his actions being totally forgotten if it meant that he could forget them too. And then he leaves her alone. No swearing. Love this scene. Both halves of it. The visitor is right. Superman doesn't feel out of place amongst those soldiers at all. It is a testament to both Superman's character and Jeff Loeb's writing of that character that this moment works. Again, Superman is such a larger-than-life figure. He's super strong, super tough. He's got all kinds of powers, like he can fly through space and he has the body of a god. But at his heart, he's just a kid who grew up in Kansas. His motivations for being in this war are no different than those soldiers. He wants people to be safe. He wants his family to be safe. Additionally, he's never so self-important that he can't afford to talk to these men, and that allows him to connect further with them, and through them, us, as the audience. General Rock's scene with the Visitor is an echo of that idea. Like Superman, Rock is a living legend himself to a lot of the audience, not just thanks to his in-universe role as the dude who stopped World War II, but The Rock is also the co-creation of legendary artist Joe Kubert and is easily one of the most successful characters to come out of the 1950s war comics. Where Marvel found a way to update their World War II soldier, Nick Fury, into a super spy and then a superhero authority figure, Sergeant Rock generally remained a figure of the past. This is why Superman and the Visitor are both surprised to see him here. He literally hadn't appeared in DC Comics in decades. But Jeff Loeb is writing a war comic here, even if it is a modern war and not World War II, and that means you need a soldier. That means you need a man who knows how to do this. And that means General Rock. But Rock doesn't see any glory in what he has done, nor does he view himself as anything special for having done it. He was a man doing his job, just the same as the soldiers next to him and those on this plane, and like Superman and the Visitor are about to be. Whatever this group is going to do, whether they succeed or fail, whether they're remembered or forgotten, the only thing that matters is that they get the job done, and that no one else has to die. Rock is exactly the kind of soldier that I like. He's no nonsense, sure, and rough around the edges, but he isn't heartless. He's proud of answering the call to war, but he also takes no pride in his actions during the war. He just wishes that he could have done more to save his fellow soldiers. The things that he did were necessary, sure, but that doesn't mean that it should be glorified, either. And I love that. The red badge of courage that the general is referencing is a metaphorical idea. The idea is that if a soldier is wounded in battle, they have physical proof of their bravery. The idea was popularized back in 1895 with a book of the same name by author Stephen Crane. The lead character of that book was a coward who fled his unit during battle in the Civil War, but then regretted that action and wished to prove his bravery. Rock's metaphorical badge, the one that he said every soldier carries at some point, is the stain upon his soul that is killing during wartime. So is Loeb showing us that the Visitor is scared of what she is about to do, and so she wants proof of her bravery? Or is he saying that she wants to be remembered for her actions? I mean, I'm honestly not sure. I am very unfamiliar with the strange Visitor, so her wants and motivations are fairly unknown to me, and while this moment doesn't spell it out, it is hinting at them. On the craft, Superman approaches the Visitor. He couldn't help but overhear her conversation with the general. He tells her that it takes a special kind of person to do this kind of thing, to make the kind of sacrifice that she's planning to make. He's basically telling her that he thinks she's brave. He's then interrupted by the intercom. They're in range of their target. Time to go. Superman and the Visitor move to the bomb bay, while Rock moves to the forward cockpit. The craft then separates into two halves, with Rock in the forward piece and the super team in the back one. Their bay doors open. The Visitor envelops them both in a blue orb, and they exit, dropping into the vacuum of space. Superman looks at his companion. He calls her Sharon, and says that he would like to work with her more once this is over. Maybe they can get the League involved. They can probably help her figure her situation out. But the Visitor kindly shushes him. She appreciates the gesture, but she isn't going to be going back. Superman protests this, confused, so she phases her hand into his forehead. He bellows in pain as she says goodbye, calling him Clark, much to his surprise. Then we go inside his mind, and this is where Bill Sienkiewicz comes in. The inside of Clark's mind is depicted as a black and white 2-page spread. It's a mix of images, some of them of a woman, some are of the Visitor, there are some close-up on some eyes, and there's some text laid over the top like a Dear John letter. At the end of the page, we've got Superman kneeling on the ground, his face hidden by his hands as if he is crying or mourning. A voice narrates the scene, introducing herself, itself, themself, and yeah, that is a habit that they've got, as Kismet, and they then explain. This being is the so-called guardian of reality. In order to hide from its enemies, Kismet hid its essence, its soul, perhaps, in the body of a woman, inside of Sharon Vance. Vance's airplane was struck by lightning, killing Sharon, but placing Kismet inside her body. This is why the Visitor has had so much trouble finding a life and purpose while on Earth. It's because she had no place in our reality. She should never have been. She was a strange visitor in truth, and now it's time for her to leave. So, to repay Superman for saving her in that plane incident, the Visitor will now save Superman. Okay, sure. I suppose that all checks out, I guess. Why not? In the physical reality, and back with Ed McGuinness's artwork, the Visitor merges physically with Superman. His cape burns away, becoming pure blue energy. His costume becomes a dark blue, almost black, the S on his chest glowing bright white, and his skin has taken on this metallic blue tone. With a determined expression, Superman and the strange Visitor take off, streaking through space. He passes the Alliance Armada. He passes General Rock. Twin beams of Omega energy streak alongside Superman, fired from Apocalypse. And then it all hits. Imperiex cries out, quote, "You know not what you have done!" End quote. The Green Lantern focuses all of his willpower, straining to contain all of Imperix's suddenly loosened energy. The Omega beams hit, teleporting that energy of Imperiex. But then something happens. War World drops its cloak. Now floating between Earth and Apocalypse, Brainiac 13 begins its plan. War World absorbs the Imperiex energy as Brainiac 13 activates the B-13 technology in Metropolis. This transforms LexCorp Tower into a massive beam weapon. It fires the temporal displacement cannon, and a large beam of purple energy smashes into Apocalypse. On that world, Darkseid rages. If Earth has seen fit to open fire upon Apocalypse, then Apocalypse will rain down fire upon the Earth! Finally, the last of our worlds to enter the war has entered the war. This moment is the culmination of about a year of storytelling in the Superman books. During the Y2K storyline, Brainiac 13 invaded Metropolis and transformed it using its technology. Lex Luthor was eventually able to buy Brainiac 13 off by offering it his daughter, the then-infant Lena, in exchange for Brainiac leaving. Brainiac took the deal, giving control of the B-13 technology to Luthor, and, to the best of my knowledge, life was grand for everybody. Well, obviously, abandoning the B-13 technology in Metropolis was all part of Brainiac 13's plan. That technology has now allowed it to fire upon Apocalypse, although to what end we don't yet know. Given that the weapon it used was called a temporal displacement cannon, I can only guess that this will involve some sort of time travel shenanigans that we just haven't seen explored yet. I would also like to remind you, dear listeners, that we have known about Brainiac 13's involvement since the beginning of this event. It was Brainiac 13 who stole Pluto and transformed it into War World, an act which drew Superman away from Earth to investigate it in Superman issue 171. While Superman was gone, Brainiac 13 sent his now grown-up and brainiacified Lena to visit President Luthor, telling him about the upcoming war and how he should fight it. War World was seemingly destroyed at the end of issue 171, but it pieced itself back together after Superman left the scene. That act of destruction was done to give Superman a peace of mind, and to give Brainiac 13 the freedom to act. The other time that we saw War World creep into our narrative was in Superman the Man of Steel, issue 116. It was in this issue that Steel accidentally scanned the cloaked War World and attempted to warn Superman about it. A mysterious figure, most likely Lena, teleported to the League base upon the moon and then killed him with a blast of energy. Steel had just enough strength to write out W-A-R-W in his own blood before dying. So this reveal has been planned for since the beginning, although we don't yet know Brainiac 13's motivation or what its ultimate plan looks like. That said, I'm really surprised that Darkseid buys the idea that Earth fired upon it of its own free will. Darkseid is clearly surprised by the sudden appearance of Warworld. There's even a panel of him going, "What?" all shockedly, but I mean, does he really think that Luthor would be dumb enough to attack Apocalypse without an assurance that he could win that conflict? Like, Lex Luthor is absolutely a greedy, backstabbing Subanovich who would turn this conflict to his advantage in a heartbeat if he thought that he could. But how does attacking Apocalypse now do that? Without Darkseid, there is no alien armada, which means Earth is back to fighting on its own, and Earth protectors have kind of gotten their butts rocked recently. Doing this would just be a dumb move. But Darkseid, by his very nature, isn't very trusting already, and then he is also dealing with Lex freaking Luthor, so I guess I can buy him thinking that Luthor just betrayed him. Just aim for Luthor, big guy. Leave the rest of the Earth out of this. I didn't have much to comment about on the Strange Visitor reveal page because, honestly, I have no context for it. Reading up on Wikipedia, everything seems to match up, so factually, I can't really complain. I have no familiarity with this character otherwise, either the Visitor or Sharon Vance, so I can't really comment much on her. I do appreciate the idea that the Visitor has been intending to sacrifice itself, and it was feeling sad about that fact. That was why she wanted to be remembered in that earlier scene with General Rock. It's also possible that, inwardly, the Visitor wasn't feeling particularly brave about this death, hence the need for a red badge of courage, something to prove how brave she was. But I'd say that she certainly proved her heart here. I want to argue that it's a bit disappointing that the thing that finally beats Imperiex is honestly a background character's sacrifice. Like, we've had 9 issues of building up to this conflict between Earth and Imperiex. We've seen the Justice League get their butts kicked, we've seen Doomsday get destroyed, we've seen Superman struggle just to keep up with things, and these are all forces that, as readers, we're pretty familiar with. Even if it's just in rumors, I know how deadly Doomsday can be, but then in drops the Strange Visitor, who I have never even heard of before, and she is the thing that saves the day. But it is also a nice moment of character work beforehand, and it's really the time that the Strange Visitor spent on Earth that inspired it to make this sacrifice. The Visitor knows now that it isn't a human woman named Sharon Vance. It never was. But it was that time spent as Sharon Vance that made the Visitor appreciate life and Earth and Superman's kindness, and now it wishes to return the favor. That's sweet, at least, and it's better than nothing. But I can't help but feel that if the Strange Visitor was going to play such a large role in this story, then the Strange Visitor should have been more of a role in this story. I don't even know if the Visitor has been a major player in the rest of the Superman books leading up to this. This could come out of nowhere, because it certainly came out of nowhere for the rest of this narrative. There's a small Strange Visitor appearance in one of the Superboy tie-in issues. I don't remember which one off the top of my head. I read it as part of the Young Justice string of issues for this collection. But it's basically, hey, Strange Visitor's a thing, and then she moves over here to where we see her in this issue of Superman. So it's a little weird, and I'm not 100% sure that I appreciate this move. Once I've read everything and I've got a better context for it, this will probably be a sticking point in like my final analysis, I bet. I also want to point out that, despite getting intelligence from Brainiac 13, Luthor appeared just as surprised by Warworld as anyone else. This was not a move that he knew was going to happen. Although, like, really? In the same way that Darkseid isn't terribly surprised by Luthor firing upon Apocalypse, I really think that Luthor would expect Brainiac 13 to betray him. They're supervillains, it's what they do! You only trust another supervillain as far as you can betray him, and with Brainiac 13 feeding Luthor information from the beginning, Luthor was always going to be at a disadvantage. That said, it sure is nice seeing long-term story planning paying off with strong character beats and solid artwork. Nicely done. Nicely done, Superman creative team. I am a bit thrown by this sudden move by Brainiac 13, but I'll save my thoughts on the narrative structure until we finish the whole crossover. We've still got a ways to go. The Adventures of Superman, issue 595, is our next issue. Written by Joe Casey, with pencils by Mike Wieringo, inks by Jose Marzan Jr., colors by Wildstorm Effects, and hey, we've got another special credit to Bill Sienkiewicz. Nice. The issue opens with boom tubes opening over the Earth, dumping out hordes of parademons. Armed with flight packs, plasma guns, cudgels, and a general willingness to kill and break things, the parademons open fire on buildings and smash in the cockpits of Blackhawk jets. We move inside of the White House War Room, where things are just chaos. Display screens are down, some of the monitors are actually exploding, and the technicians at them struggle to find any kind of solution. Lois Lane sits in a chair, shell-shocked at her husband's sacrifice in destroying Imperiex. But President Lex Luthor is just angry. He needs more information, now! A technician replies that they've got nothing. The B-13 technology that's been incorporated into all of their systems has been overridden. They're trapped inside of the White House by their own security systems. The president orders them all to return to their stations. This war isn't over yet. Then he turns, storming out of the room, demanding to know where she is, referring to Lena. On Apocalypse, Darkseid stands before a gigantic monitor, coordinating the attack on Earth. He will show that pathetic planet the true definition of war. The fools. They thought that they could betray him. Jerks. Behind him, Graven watches. He's happy to see his father in his element. Oh, I didn't know Graven was Darkseid's kid. Huh. Darkseid turns around, and he's like, look, you might say that you're my son, but I'm not buying it. You don't know me from Jack, you little punk. Graven is like, calm down, old man. Aren't you such a master of war that you would see this attack coming? Or are you just this stupid? After all, Graven doubts that Darkseid's attack is really a reactionary move. And of course it isn't. Darkseid does not underestimate his opponents. Betrayal by Luthor was always a possibility. And that's good, that's smart. He adds that whoever strikes first in a war can own the future. Darkseid finishes by ranting that Imperix's power should have been his, so that he could have crushed Earth with them. And one more thing, Graven, Darkseid has some questions for you. But before he can ask any of them, the facility that they are in shakes. Then Superman bursts through one of the walls. Graven braces for the fight. It looks like Superman's gift for dodging death is still working, but he's never been killed by Graven before. Superman doesn't even blink at this guy's bravado. Try it. The next page is topped by an exterior shot of Darkseid's base or facility. Then it's followed by Graven, punched through the wall and flying through the air. What a punk. What a little crap. Superman then turns to Darkseid, who honestly wants to know how Superman survived Imperix's detonation. The hero flashes back to the moment when the visitor crashed into Imperiex and exploded. He could feel his heart explode and his mind go elsewhere. Somewhere outside of the universe. He had no thoughts of survival there, no thoughts of being alive or dead, or whether or not they had succeeded. He had learned that war only served itself, and having lost so much already, Superman was ready to just let it all go. But then Bill Sienkiewicz drew a comic page, and he just had to go on living. I won't lie. I'm not sure, visually, what's happening here. Superman approaches some kind of, red energy mass. It maybe looks like eyes. A series of speaking voices litter the page. One of them is Superman's. One of them appears to be Kismet/Vance/The Visitor, and then there's maybe an unknown third party? Maybe it's God? Again, everything on the page is just vague and it's barely defined. The lettering doesn't help at all. I don't know. Superman asks why he can't rest. Why must he go on? The other voices say that it is his choice, that he has more challenges ahead of him. He has faced death before, and it always will be nearby, ready to welcome him. A line of dialogue, literally like it goes across the entire page, and it's just the word Lois repeating, runs behind Superman as he falls backwards through a shattered image, I think of his own face, back towards life. Then we're back with Superman in Darkseid's fortress, staring the new god down. However he managed to survive, Superman says, he learned something. He has gotten a chance to be outside of the universe and look back in. Maybe he even found the true nature of all existence. And in that context, Darkseid is just so small. The god scoffs. Blasphemy. Darkseid is all. And now he'll send Superman to his real end. Red Omega beams fire from Darkseid's eyes. Superman doesn't even bother dodging them. He just stands there and they slam into his chest, pushing him, but he holds his ground. This isn't going to kill him. Superman then activates his heat vision and he fires back, pushing towards Darkseid. The two combatants lock hands, struggling, shattering the ground beneath their feet. Darkseid seems to gain the upper hand, but only for a moment as Superman rallies. He hasn't fought so hard for so long just to let a despot like Darkseid rule over everything. He locks his hands together and then clocks Darkseid under the chin, forcing him back. We move to the White House next, catching up with Lex Luthor, so let's pause. A lot of stuff just happened here. Due to his immortal and generally inhuman perspective on life, it's always a bit hard to get a read on Darkseid. His reactions to Luthor's attack felt genuine. He honestly felt surprised to me. But it's clear here that Darkseid was expecting some form of betrayal from Luthor, even if it wasn't this. So maybe the form of the attack is what shocked him, actually. I'd believe that. And honestly, expecting betrayal is smart from all of the parties involved in this, as Darkseid clearly intended to use Imperix's power for his own plans. Hell, maybe that's what threw Darkseid so much, that someone stole his plan and did it first. Like that's some kind of genius move, yeesh. I don't have much to say about Graven being Darkseid's son. This is an area where I'm just unfamiliar with DC continuity, so I don't know much about this going in. I also don't really care to look more information up on him like I did with The Strange Visitor. The Visitor's actions and motivations were a key element to our last issue, so I didn't mind looking into her story some more. But Graven honestly isn't even a supporting player here. He's barely a background concern, so I'm content to just leave him alone for now. If this crossover does lead to me starting some kind of Superman collection, Graven is a character that I wouldn't mind learning more about as I go, but I can't say that he's impressed me enough here for me to really give a crap. Everyone here in this scene was kind of shocked that Superman is alive, and that's a holdover from our last issue. I kind of skipped over it at the end of the last issue because, come on, honestly, none of us were going to suspect that Superman was actually dead for even an instant. There were characters who commented on Superman going missing in the wake of the explosion. One of Luthor's technicians actually lost him and said it, and then Lois was shocked and horrified by it, acting as if he was actually really dead, but just come on. I just thought it was a cliffhanger ending. I didn't think that it was going to be an actual plot point here. And it might as well have not been a plot point, because the author doesn't really do anything with that moment. So we've now seen Superman encounter Darkseid 3 times in this event, with Darkseid's initial arrival on Earth, when Darkseid saved Superman from Imperiex, and now. Each time, Superman has assumed the worst, failed to trust Darkseid, and then attacked him. But each time, Darkseid has revealed himself to be an ally of Earth, if only for now. Going into this encounter, Superman has returned to life and found Apocalypse attacking Earth. I get it. This looks bad. This sure looks like a reason to defend the Earth and punch Darkseid. But Superman knows that Apocalypse isn't the real threat here. Warworld appeared from out of nowhere, and then Earth fired on Apocalypse. There is clearly a connection between these two events, and Superman knows that Warworld was controlled by Brainiac 13. But he doesn't even try to talk Darkseid down from his attack. He just starts punching dudes, and that's stupid. This whole encounter is just page-eating bullshit. Like, basically, this entire issue is devoted to Superman fighting Darkseid until the pair realize that Brainiac 13 is the larger threat, and one of them already knows that! Author Joe Casey could have used Superman's outside-of-death experience to advance the plot here. Superman could have died and then witness Brainiac 13's attack from outside of reality, informing him of those actions, and then, when he comes down and goes to confront Darkseid, he doesn't attack him, he just convinces him that he should trust Superman. This would invert the last two encounters that we saw, in which Darkseid came in peace to help Superman, and then Superman attacked him, so we would honestly be surprised by the change. The stuff that we've been given here honestly isn't bad, but it sure is predictable, and that's just kind of lame. We return to the White House, where we can see glowing wires growing on the building. Inside, President Luthor bursts into the Oval Office, and he finds Lena there. He asks if she knew about this part of history, and she answers that yes, he's been played. His desire for immortality, his hidden sentimentality for her, it's been an easy game for her master. Luthor grabs her by the shoulders, tired of this game, horrified at what she's become. A force field burst shoves him back on his butt, though. Lena answers to a higher power now, as soon Luthor will too. Brainiac 13, her master, shall soon rule this world. Lena tells him goodbye and teleports away. As she does, the White House goes dark. In fact, the surrounding area goes dark. This is a pretty nice moment. Luthor has obviously been concerned about Lena because she's his source of intelligence, and if she could shed any light on this sudden development, that sure would be great. But he honestly seems concerned for her as a father, too. He's upset about what she's become, hurt that she would betray him and humanity, and that's showing a surprising bit of depth for him. Lena is right when she says that her master played to Luthor's ego and heart, and we actually get to see an example of how he did that here in this scene. That's nice storytelling. I don't care who you are. Back at the brawl, though, Superman and Darkseid are still going at it when Warworld suddenly blasts at Apocalypse with a beam of hard light. The blue energy tears through buildings, raising a solid chunk of real estate, and brings the fight to a halt. Darkseid folds his arms, indicating that he's done with this battle, while Superman just takes it as an interruption. He's ready to go. Where were we, big guy? Darkseid knows better than to continue. He has now realized the true threat here, and Graven enters the room to confirm it. He savors this moment of victory, of triumph, as his true god moves into the final steps of his plan. One of the monitors flickers to life. Its cracked display shows Warworld hanging above. Back at the White House, the president has cleaned up after his encounter with Lena. He's back in a nice black suit and tie, a nice visual metaphor of him trying to regain control of the situation. I'm not sure where he is in the building, but the walls are concrete blocks, and Luthor is the only person in the halls. He enters one of the rooms. Inside, we find Ignition, one of General Zod's men. He's like, I don't even know how to describe him. He's tall and bulky. He kinda looks like an engine or turbine, but like made human. He actually has big turbines on his shoulders, and there are 4 massive columns that jut from his back. Crackling yellow energy floats into the air from all of them. He has on khaki shorts too, those are just adorable, and red energy pours from his eyes. His head is vaguely bullet-shaped, like it's just a dark cone with no visible mouth, and all of his skin is like black. Luthor tells Ignition that communications outside of the White House are down.
He's guessing an EMP as a precursor to Warworld's next attack. Ignition replies that his master agrees, and that if Luthor wishes to barter, now is the time. The general can provide the manpower needed to turn this encounter, if Luthor will pay the price. The president moves to a window that is laced with circuitry. Of course he'll pay for it. He doesn't have a choice. Victory is the only acceptable outcome here. Thankfully, Brainiac 13 has provided the key, in the form of Lena. Ignition says that Luthor knows what the general wants. Luthor turns towards him. Yes, once this war is over, Luthor will see to it that General Zod is a world power. So, let's talk about what Zod needs to do now. Ooh, I had guessed that the General and Luthor were in cahoots, and here we have clear evidence of cahootin'. Not sure how Luthor plans on using Lena, though. We end the issue on Apocalypse, where Graven is hyping up how awesome Brainiac 13 is. Apocalypse will be sacrificed first, and then Earth will get absorbed into the collective. That catches Superman's attention, and Darkseid sighs. So this machine is Graven's chosen god? Totally, Dad. In fact, Graven renounces Darkseid as his god. Then, as his father, Darkseid shall have to punish Graven fittingly. He fires his Omega beams and teleports Graven somewhere else. Then he turns to Superman. So we need to do something about Brainiac 13, yes? Superman agrees. There is only one option left here. He can feel it in his soul. Superman turns to look at Darkseid. He's going to kill Brainiac 13. You know, I get it. Superman's big thing is that he doesn't kill people, despite having the power to do so fairly easily. Thus, when he does kill someone or threaten to kill someone, it's supposed to have some major weight to it. But at this point, Superman has killed who knows how many Imperiex probes. Of course, Imperiex itself, with the help of the Strange Visitor. And we have that weird Superman doesn't kill line in our last issue of Action Comics. It's kind of lost its importance at this point, right? Like, this ending doesn't feel dramatic at all, it just feels tired. If you tie that into how predictable the Superman and Darkseid fight was, honestly, this issue's kind of lame. It's all well executed, don't get me wrong, but it's just weak. The same can be said of the coloring, too. Wildstorm FX did the colors on this one, and it all looks washed out. There's no pop or life to it. Penciler Mike Ringo's line work is solid. It's still a nice issue to look at, so that's a plus for sure. The two sections by Bill Sienkiewicz really stand out in these issues. I'm most familiar with his artwork due to my New Mutants collection, but Sienkiewicz has solid runs on the Fantastic Four, Moon Knight, a whole bevy of covers, and he did the comic adaptation of Frank Herbert's Dune, so that's neat. He has a fairly thin, sketchy kind of line work, and he favors strange, unique page layouts. He's much more about creating an interesting visual than he is at conveying a clear and concise narrative, and that is a skill that is definitely on display here. The 2-page spread in Superman was basically Sharon Vance's life story, becoming the Strange Visitor and ending with her teaming with Superman and him being sad at her death. That works fairly well, my lack of familiarity with Vance being the real thing that makes this scene ineffective. The dialogue cues and images all make sense, and it works. The contrast created by putting that kind of artwork in a book that is mostly drawn by Ed McGuiness is great, too, so it's not just a different bit of artwork, but it conveys the utter difference in reality that was reality versus Superman's mind. That is very effective, and it is an interesting use of Sienkiewicz's art. The single page that we get in Adventures works less well. The general idea here is the same, that Superman is in a place outside of normal reality, hence the strange imagery, and it is still being contrasted by a brighter, cartoonier style, it's just here it's Mike Ringo. But the pages in Superman, as free-flowing as they are, they make sense, they do convey the narrative. But the single page in Adventures doesn't. It is super muddled and it's hard to read, and I mean, it is outside of normal existence, so perhaps it sells exactly what it was meant to sell. Or maybe it's just an ugly page with an excuse to be ugly. I don't know. This one doesn't work nearly as well for me, but again, that could be me. It is still nice to see Sankiewicz's artwork, as he doesn't get a lot of work in the modern age, but this one just doesn't quite do it. I don't know where the story goes from here. Like, switching out Brainiac 13 as our big bad is a weird move this late in the game. We've spent all of this time building up to Imperiex and its threat, and now it's gone? And Brainiac 13 is here, and we only have 2 issues left in this story, and then we get the wrap-up issue. We've still got a whole planet to save here. So, join me in a week as a hero returns, Luthor storms LexCorp Tower, and everything comes to a new beginning in Comic Book Breakdown episode 13.7, Our Worlds at War, Part 7.
Everyone, there are a million podcasts vying for your time and attention, and I'd like to thank you for listening to mine. If you would like to get in touch with me, to share a concern, request a series, compliment me, berate me, whatever you like, send me an email at cbbreakdown@gmail.com. Otherwise, thanks for listening.